the word guru, it means teacher. So anyone who is a teacher is essentially a guru. Any kind of teacher. But there's another interesting word for guru, or not word, there's another interesting sort of connotation for guru. It means heavy. It's heavy. And so oftentimes the role of the guru, while the instruction is there, the role is simply to be able to anchor you. Those teachings, that experience helps you stay centered no matter what is going on. So sometimes to be a guru or a teacher is to simply be that kind of anchor for someone, which is why even a good meditation group can be an anchor for someone. They know, and even your meditation time at home is an anchor, so that's also a guru. It allows the person to know, okay, there's this place I can go where we are all in understanding that experiencing a clear awareness, spiritual awareness, is beneficial for, well, it's just beneficial. So remember, the guru is an anchor. The guru is heavy. The guru keeps you in the right place in a way. As far as I know, all of the teachers in the lineage had students that they ordained and authorized to teach Kriya Yoga. Even Yogananda did that. He authorized and ordained Roy Eugene Davis, the fellow in that picture right there, Oliver Black. He authorized and ordained Oliver Black to teach Kriya Yoga. I think Kriyananda as well, Donald Walters from Ananda. And I remember Mr. Davis telling me a story one time where there was a Self-Realization Fellowship member who used to, I think, drove Yogananda around. And Yogananda told this person, you should be doing Kriya initiations with people if they're sincere. And she questioned him because that didn't seem to be the general idea from the organization. And what I heard was that Yogananda shot back and said, well, are you following me or are you following an organization? So even Yogananda had students. Oliver Black had students. I recently did a podcast with Roy Thibodeau, who is a student of Oliver Black. He teaches, I think, in the Michigan area. Sri Yukteswar had other students than Yogananda. There's actually a organization in Florida that was part of the lineage from Sri Yukteswar to another student. So anyway, if you do a little bit of research, you'll recognize that there are multiple avenues to learn Kriya Yoga. And as Mr. Davis had said, these techniques, they're not secret. You can find them in my book, obviously, but you can find them in just people have written about these elsewhere as well. So they're not secret. And that's always a fascinating thing, because the true secret behind these techniques isn't that someone says, don't talk about them with someone else. The secret is that you figure out how to work them. That's the secret, because too many people learn the techniques and they never actually do it well enough or long enough to recognize, oh, this works really well. So it's almost like that is one of the reasons why when it came to teaching these things, I became very okay with just doing a video on the internet about these are the techniques, write in a book, these are the techniques, because I know that the people who really are going to benefit from it are going to figure it out. They're going to work it. As Mr. Davis would tell me, he'd said, look, the techniques work, but you got to work the techniques. That's how he spoke about these things. So you can learn these processes anywhere. And if you're dedicated enough, that Om vibration is universal. It's not just going to say, I will only show up if you participate in initiations through this one lineage. It is accessible to anyone, anywhere. Maybe you've gone to churches. I remember being a kid and I was Catholic, going into a Catholic church when no one else was there, and I could hear that sound. Do you know what sound I'm talking about? Okay. I didn't know what it was when I was 8 years old, a little Catholic boy, but once it was revealed to me, I was like, I've been hearing that in churches, out in the woods, in quiet places my entire life. if you just listen to it, it does the work. Find a path that you can see yourself staying aligned with and true to way into the future. And as I mentioned, when I first met Mr. Davis, I had no questions about it. When I'd read Autobiography of a Yogi, it was probably about 6 or 7 months before I came down to CSA. The woman who gave it to me, she was the yoga instructor of the class I went to. And after I read it, I thought, oh, well, she practices that, so she must be able to initiate me. And she said, no, you either have to go to California, SRF, or you have to go to CSA, because Roy is a student of Yogananda's. At that time, I hadn't traveled very far, so California seemed like a long ways away. I thought, well, I can make an 8-hour drive. And as soon as I showed up here, that was it. There was no other thoughts about, well, maybe SRF has it, or maybe Ananda has it, or maybe one of these other teachers, maybe they really have the spiel, the real information. There was just a, no, this is the right place. I knew that Mr. Davis, for me, would play that role of that anchor. And he has played that role of that anchor. Because even though I was not able to keep my hair short and my face shaved like he preferred, and not get tattoos, even though I was not able to do that, the other things in my life, about keeping my life organized, simple, giving my time and attention to meditation, focus and self-study, by interacting with him, I had that anchor. And it's still there. Mr. Davis talked about attunement last night, and how Yogananda had said to someone, I like it when you understand what I say, but I like it even better when I don't have to say it. So many times I would write emails to Mr. Davis way back, and I would simply sit down and meditate after I sent that email. And whatever I was curious about would just, oh, okay, I get that, in meditation. I would sit down and meditate afterwards. And then I'd go check my email, and sure enough, he had responded with the response of what I was like, oh, yeah, that's it. So many times I had been here at CSA, and something was going on in my life, and I hadn't said anything to him. I hadn't even met with him yet. And in his talk, he would just share something that would speak directly to what was going on. So that's that kind of attunement that you have. And you can also get that kind of attunement by a very simple method of you're in your life and you're doing something, and you have an option, you have a choice. And not to pull out the what would Jesus do kind of stuff, but you ask yourself, well, what would one of my spiritual mentors do in this situation? And most of the time, you know what they would do, right? I mean, if you had a serious question in your life, and it was confusing, and everyone giving you different viewpoints and saying you should do this, you should do that. If you stopped and you said, if you knew Roy well enough, or even Yogananda well enough, and you asked, well, what would they do in this? Don't you think you would probably come up with the right answer? Because they're pretty clear about how to live your life, aren't they? So by doing that, just simply doing that, you might not want to, but by simply doing that, you eventually start to see the benefit of maintaining that kind of attunement. And then you know what they know, you experience what they experience, and who knows, maybe your presence in someone's life, you just simply being a good role model in that regard, will also inspire them to stay focused, to live a better life, to be more responsible, to grow up spiritually, essentially. So this is how you can think about being attuned to this teaching, to this tradition. It's okay if you need to make it personal in the beginning. When I first met with Mr. Davis, I always thought he was reading my mind. I would always be slightly terrified about when he'd say, meet me at the chalet after the talk or whatever, and he'd pour tea, and I'd be sitting there trying my best not to think about anything. Because I knew that once, a little thing popped in my mind, he'd follow that little route down the rabbit hole to whatever weird stuff was inside. So for many years I was just, until the day I was walking up the hill was staying in the top guest house up there, and he pulled into the chalet, and he was getting out of his car, and I thought, I just got to tell him. So I said, you really scare me. And he went, boo! And then he just walked away. And then after that, it didn't bother me anymore. I just thought, no, I'm just there to be in his presence. And I remember when we didn't always meet at the chalet. Many times, the greenhouse, usually the greenhouse, sometimes these other houses, when we would come, when there was not a retreat going on, it was just like a show up and hang out and meditate and have a private for ourselves retreat. He would meet with me and Melissa, and we'd make him tea, and he would never drink all of his tea. So I would wait until he left, and I would make sure I would grab that teacup and I'd drink it down just in case there was anything there. And one other time, when I was a massage therapist, the last time I came down, he had just said, I've never had a massage before. And he asked me, he's like, well, let me just see what it's like. Would you do a massage? And I've never had a massage before. He didn't ask Melissa. Melissa was a massage therapist too, but he was always appropriate. So he knew, let's keep it male to male. We don't want any kind of potential weird thoughts about anything. So he asked me to do it, which Melissa probably would have been the better candidate because she was better at it. So I brought my table, set it up, and he got on the table, and I swear I did an 1.5-hour massage on him. I swear I did. And I looked at the clock. It had only been a half an hour. I was so nervous that I just zipped through it all. Okay, flip over. And he never had one before, so maybe he didn't have anything to compare it to. And he got out. I said, well, that was nice. I feel good. And Melissa's like, you're done? That was only a half hour. And then, of course, being the weirdo I was, after he left, I was, folding up the sheets. I was like, where his head was, like, did he leave any hairs that I can take and put on my altar? So I understand. I've been that weirdo. But as the years went on, I outgrew that. Yeah. But when I would meet with him, it was always we just had tea, and he would just talk to us. And he'd tell stories. We'd spend about an hour and a half together, and sometimes if I was here by myself, he would invite me down to the office to have lunch with them. And then, I'd sit there and talk with him a little bit longer, and it was when we had the meditation center in Asheville, and he'd say things like, it's really good to be innovative. Like he said on the video, you heard him say that last night, right? How he was innovative in certain ways. It's good to be responsible and consistent, but innovative. And in my mind, I heard, be innovative. So it was probably the 3rd or 4th month of the retreat center in Asheville, and I thought, well, I want to be innovative. I know Roy has said, this is how you do the program. You meditate this time. Every Tuesday you have maybe a discussion on the Yoga Sutras. Thursday you do another meditation, and Sunday little 20-minute talk with the meditation. That's what you do. Do that consistently. I eventually talked him into doing a kirtan, because in Asheville you got to do something other. No one, I hate to say it, but he wanted me to be suit and tie, just straight up business. And I said, I live in Asheville, right? But anyway, I did it. But I heard, be innovative. And so I thought, well, I'm going to schedule like a Bhagavad Gita or Yoga Sutras discussion before the talk on Sundays for people who want to show up early and just really hit it hard. So I did that a few times, and I came back down. He's like, did I say you could do a discussion before? And I'm thinking, I'm being innovative. And I'm not even being innovative in a outlandish way. So anyway, it was interesting. Sometimes there'd be those discussions and I would misunderstand what he was saying, but then he would correct me. And I was open to that. There are many things I resisted, but as the years went by, I started to recognize why he said and did what he did. And the problems that I had early on, it was because I thought I knew how it should be done. Really, that's what it came down to. I, who had only been at this for about 5 years, thought that someone who'd been at it for 50 years, I thought I knew better than that person. And that is one of the reasons why there is this student-teacher relationship. Because if you have a teacher and you can listen to what they say, you can miss many of the mistakes they made. And you can make greater progress because you're not just trying to... You can figure it out on your own. I know you can. Anyone can. But you're not going to make the same mistakes. Just like my cousin, he taught himself to play guitar. He is the most amazing guitar player I have ever heard. He was a natural at it. I tried to teach myself to play guitar, and I eventually did, but it helped me to actually have someone to give me specifics about how it's done, because I did not have that natural inclination. So the value of a teacher-student relationship is recognizing, hopefully, that your teacher is saying things not just to hear themselves talk, but because maybe if you listen to it, you will save yourself a lot of trouble. Yogananda used to say, I think I've got the ratio right, that once you commit to the spiritual path, whether that be initiation or just you decide that you're committed, or you find a teacher and commit to that teacher and that teaching, he would say that when that happens, God takes away 50% of your karma, right there. The guru then takes away 25% of your karma. And then you have the remaining 25% to work out on your own. Now, you can make that as esoteric and mystical as possible, but really, if you follow the teaching, you are less likely to do things that get you in trouble, aren't you? You're less likely to experience suffering and pain. And then the rest of it, well, you got to work that out in your head, that 25%. So this is the role of the spiritual path and the teaching and how you need to kind of be in your mind engaged in it.